Hey folks, today I got something that's a little bit different. It's a story that I wanted to share with you guys. A pretty cool story. You know how I mentioned in the past that gear sometimes has a way of finding you instead of you finding the gear? Well, to me that actually happened this week when I landed on this really cool Marshall JCM800 Studio Classic. So it's a pretty nifty story, pretty neat story. It doesn't happen every day. There's a lot more to the story than meets the eye, so stick around if you're curious. I think you're gonna like it. So I've been having serious gas for a Marshall Studio Classic like this for a long time now. I've mentioned it many times on my channel. I had done my research. I wasn't rushing into it. I was waiting patiently, lurking, stalking the used markets as one does, checking listings almost obsessively, waiting for that perfect one to show up. But these are quite popular, so they don't pop up that often. I had to be very, very, very patient, and I was. This past week, out of nowhere, boom, there it was. Mint condition JCM800 Studio Classic, head and matching 2x12 cabinet. And if that wasn't enough, they came with these really super high quality amp covers for both the head and the cabinet, which you don't usually see, let alone, the set. So the price was right. The listing seemed to be like it was mint. The whole package was too good to pass up. So honestly, I went into buy mode. My brain just, time to attack. Who wouldn't want to grab a deal like that? So I didn't hesitate. I fired up my phone, fired up a message to the seller right away. It only had been listed for like 4 hours, but I texted him right away. Hey man, is this still available? I'm interested. I was expecting an answer, but got nothing. Total silence, like dead air. So of course, cue the anxiety. You know how it goes, especially these days. Sometimes you just don't get a response, or it's already gone by the time you see it. So you overthink it. You already start thinking, oh, here it is. Somebody got it already. Somebody snagged the deal ahead of me, probably 5 minutes before I even saw the listing. I hate when that happens, by the way. But then I didn't want to give up because the deal was too good to be true. Sometimes people are just slow. They don't see the message right away. So I sent another message. And then I waited a bit and I sent another message. Waited a little bit, sent another message. So I was doing all I could to make sure that the amp was either sold or the guy saw my message. And then sure enough, a couple of hours go by and I hear my phone ding, pick it up, and there's a message notification from the seller. So the seller writes back and says, hey man, sorry for the delay. I'm actually out of town for the weekend, so I won't be back until next week. At this point, I'm thinking, this is going to be one of those deals that's just not going to happen. It's going to go down rough. He's probably going to end up selling it before he gets back, or somebody else will snag it. But then he adds in a second message, hey, if you're serious, I can hold on to it for you until I get back. Now, most sellers, and I've dealt with a lot of sellers over the years, most sellers, would have probably just said, hey man, ping me when I get back next week. If you're lucky and it's still around, hasn't been sold, you can come by, the usual type of thing. But not this guy. He actually offered to hold on to it for me, which is not that common. This is why at the beginning of the video I said sometimes gear it just seems to find you. And you don't necessarily find the gear. If it's meant to be, it will be. Hold on to it. I'm interested. I'll be there. So now I had to wait a few more days. And of course, I'm counting down the days because, I've been waiting for this amplifier for a long time. I eventually went back and started double checking the listing, making sure it was still there, hadn't been taken down. You know how it is, just to make sure everything was exactly as I remembered seeing it. Nothing's changed. And that's when I noticed something that I completely overlooked the first time. And it boggles my mind, but I look back and I look at the seller's name and it says Brian Greenway. It suddenly hit me. I'm like, hold on, Brian Greenway? Could this actually be the same Brian Greenway from April Wine? So of course, the curiosity got the better of me. I dig a little deeper into his profile, do my detective work. Plain as day, right there on his profile, it says Brian Greenway, musician, aprilwine.ca. So at this point, I'm like, I still didn't really believe it. But then there's a video that he posted that very day showing the stage being set up in Quebec City, where he mentions in the little message along with the video that they're playing that night with none other than Def Leppard and Extreme. You know, and he mentions if it doesn't rain, because it was like threatening rain that particular day. So at that point, my mind's blown. I'm like, it's Brian Greenway. And he's playing a concert right now with Def Leppard and Extreme. Like, how cool is that? I listened to April Wine all through my high school years. You know, it was a very popular band back then, and they had all those incredible ballads, those straight ahead rock and roll songs, those anthems like Just Between You and Me, Sign of the Gypsy Queen, I Like to Rock, Ooh What a Night, and I can go on and on. There's so many. So suddenly this wasn't just any amp anymore, you know. Suddenly this was literally coming straight from the hands of a Canadian rock and roll legend in my eyes. You know, it's like, this doesn't happen every day. This actually never happened to me before. So this was no longer just a gear score. I mean, yeah, it was a good deal, but it was actually shaping up to be what I would call an epic experience. The day finally comes where we were supposed to meet. Brian's cool enough to send me his actual cell phone number, his address of his home, nonetheless. Like, you know, he's inviting me to go to his house. Like, okay. So I'm beside myself at this point. I'm heading over to the address that Brian gave me, wondering the whole time, like, what's it going to be to meet Brian Greenway from April Wine, like to meet him in person. So I couldn't resist. I'm getting into this proper state of mind, proper frame of mind. So of course I have to load up my April Wine Greatest Hits playlist. So I start cranking the music even before I drive out of my driveway. Full volume, all the great hits from April Wine, listening to that all the way to the final destination with a little extra vocal help from yours truly. I'm not saying it was good vocal help, but I couldn't help but to sing along. Now, of course, as luck may have it, you know, this was a pretty cool day so far, but of course, my truck air conditioning decided to completely die that day. And it was pushing, I have to say, at least 35 degrees. And this is 35 degrees, like with full humidity in Canada. It's hot, okay? It was probably 37 or more inside my truck, which is black, by the way. So I was melting even with all the windows rolled down. But honestly, I didn't care at that point because I was just driving down the highway, just maybe a little bit faster than I normally do, with air blowing in, singing songs from the band, and just enjoying my time, knowing that in a few minutes I'm going to be meeting with Brian. Brian joined April Wine back in 1977. He's been rocking with them for a long time. He's the oldest surviving member of the band. The rest of the band members have changed over time. I mean, heck, I was only 8 years old back in 1977. Brian was already making his mark on classics like Roller and Sign of the Gypsy Queen, I Like to Rock, and all the other great songs. So yeah, it felt like it was a full circle moment for me right then and there. So about an hour and a half later, after trying to get through traffic, trying not to pass out from the heat in my car, you know, beads of sweat just, you know, rolling down my cheek, I finally pull into this beautifully curved driveway. There's a garage door at the end of the driveway and it's wide open. And what do I see right there? I see this Marshall JCM800 right there, ready to go, plugged in. and Brian standing there like he's ready to go, like ready to hit out, belt out some songs from April Wine, holding a Fender Stratocaster, looking over at me. I'm like, is this happening? Then, of course, out comes Harvey out of nowhere. And Harvey turns out to be Brian's chocolate lab. He just trots over to me, tail wagging, looking for some love, sniffing around. Of course, I love dogs. I gave Harvey some, ear scratches. He seemed to love that. So Brian puts down his Strat, walks over with a big smile on his face. And we shake hands and we introduce each other. And yeah, it was definitely Brian Greenway from April Wine. I mean, I recognize the man. I know what he looks like. And man, he couldn't have been nicer. Like, super chill, super down to earth, friendly, humble. Like, he never once mentioned that he was an April Wine. Like, I knew it. He knew it. We talked about it. But he never said, hey, I'm Brian Greenway from April Wine. Not once. Like, if I hadn't known, he would never have mentioned it. So he looks at me with this thoughtful expression and he says, hey man, you look familiar. Have we met before? So I laughed and I'm like, no, I've never had the pleasure, man. It's like, it's the first time I meet you. So I didn't mention my YouTube channel. That's the only place he would have probably seen me, but I doubt very much that Brian Greenway is watching my gear reviews, right? I mean, come on. So I didn't mention anything. We start chatting about gear, of course, like musicians do. What else are we going to talk about at that stage, right? Talking about our gear. We talked about this particular Marshall, and we exchanged stories about, our favorite setups, what we play, guitars, amps, the usual stuff. Brian told me he was letting this amp go because it was just simply too loud for what he needed at home these days. So I'm thinking, I kind of probably let out a little smirk, thinking like, I've seen this guy playing countless concerts, videos of him on stage with multiple JCM800s behind him, full blast, going full tilt, and he's saying, this is too loud. So I kind of like resisted laughing out loud, but I kind of, couldn't help thinking that was funny. But, I get it. He's been doing this for a long time. He's probably played through amazing amps, but times are changing. And I guess, if he's using this at home, 20 watts is loud. This thing is a loud beast. So he mentioned that these days he mainly likes to use his Axe effects, his FM9 on stage. And I'm like, wow, no way. I got one too. I love it. It's super, super convenient. Sounds fantastic. And he mentioned how he likes to use it and all that stuff. There's just something about the feel and the sound that you could only get from a cranked real tube Marshall amp, And Brian totally agreed. I could tell I didn't have to explain it to him. I mean, he knows, right? He's the last guy I'm going to have to explain this to. So he said these days he likes to keep things simple. Just a regular Fender Deluxe reverb these days does the trick for him, which honestly I could understand, makes perfect sense. I mean, Fender Deluxes are great. There's nothing wrong with that. So at this point, I had to ask him, I'm like, Brian, would you mind signing the amp for me? And Brian goes, sure, man. He actually looked like he wasn't expecting that at all, caught him off guard. So he's like, where do you want me to sign it? I'm like, hey man, just sign it wherever you want, I don't care as long as you sign it. So he actually was kind enough to sign it for me right over here. And how cool is that, man? It's like he's got the signature here. This is going to be forever immortalized as that memory when I got to meet Brian. And, how often do you meet a rock star? Especially if you're buying gear, how often do you buy gear from a rock star? I'm going to say never, or close to never. Never happened to me before anyways. So we continue talking, and he talks about, I brought up the concert and the fact that he mentioned playing with April Wine with Def Leppard and Extreme. I asked him how the concert went, and he's like, yeah, it was good. Not more than that. He didn't say anything else, didn't elaborate. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, there was about 40 to 60,000 people there. And I'm like, wow, talk about humble. But he's played so many shows. He's played so many times. Like, I guess for him, it's like another day at the office. But He did mention that April Wine will be playing over about 60-65 shows this year alone. So that's pretty cool. They're still going strong. Now here's where I have to confess something that I didn't say while I was standing there. And I'm a little ashamed and embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to share it with you guys. I've never actually attended an April Wine concert. I know. What kind of a Canadian am I, right? They're going to take my passport away. I mean, April Wine is, next to Rush, April Wine is right up there. And I never saw them live. Now, I wasn't about to admit this at the moment. Some things are better left unsaid. So I didn't tell him that. But, I kind of felt guilty on the inside at that moment. So I'm getting ready to leave. I grabbed the head he just signed. I'm heading down the driveway to load it into the back of my truck. And here comes Brian himself carrying the 2x12 cabinet down the driveway for me. He's like huffing a little bit because it's hot and, it's not light. I couldn't believe it. I mean, seriously, it's not every day you get a certified rock star carrying your gear to your truck, acting like your roadie. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. So we load everything up. I shake his hand again and off I go, driving back home. Huge smile on my face, feeling like I just had one of the coolest days ever. And I didn't even realize or think about it until I got home that I totally forgot to snap a picture of us together. That would have been cool. I didn't think about it. I was just too caught up in the moment. I didn't even think to do that at the time. But I get excited and I get distracted by shiny things. So that's just me. But it would have been nice. But I get this home. Of course, everyone's home. The house is not quiet. I can't crank this thing, but I do set everything up ready to go. I do strum a couple of chords and stuff. Not really loud enough, but I'm getting the gist of how great this amp is going to sound once I get a chance to crank it. So here's the crazy part. Up to this point, I hadn't even turned on the amplifier. That's totally not like me. Normally I'd be scrutinizing everything before I hand over cash for any kind of deal. That's just the way I am. I like to check things out properly. But, I mean, this is Brian Greenway's amp. I'm standing there with Brian at his house. Surely I'm not getting a dud. That would be too much. I wasn't worried and I'm not disappointed because I did get a chance to crank this amplifier after the fact and it sounds glorious. It really does. It delivers the goods. So I told Brian I'd give him some feedback once I had a chance to really play it. I'm definitely going to do that. I do have his number, so I'll probably just send him a quick text letting him know everything's cool. And I might even send him this video if I work up the nerve. I'm a little bit shy to do that, but why not? And maybe, just maybe, I'll invite Brian to come hang out on the live Sunday show here on Addicted to Gear where we talk gear. Maybe he'd be interested in doing that, spending a little bit of time with us. So Brian, if you're listening, if you're out there and you're watching this, you made this guy very happy. Maybe you don't realize it, but you made me very happy indeed. Not only did I score a killer sounding amp and cab combo like this, but I also have this incredible story, this incredible memory of how it all went down on that warm summer day in July when I accidentally met you, Brian Greenway. Who would have known? So for those of you watching this video now expecting me to play it, this is not that kind of video. I just wanted to share the story with you today, but there will be plenty of videos coming up with this amplifier because I'm really digging it. It sounds great. It just plays wonderfully. So I'll share videos on how it sounds, how I like to use it, what it can do, how you can boost it to make it sound its best. So if you're interested in those type of videos, stay tuned because you'll probably get fed up of seeing them after a while. I'll probably put out quite a few. Now this is not a new amplifier. You guys know this. It's been out for a while. So there's a lot of videos on YouTube already with a lot of information about this amplifier, so you don't have to take it from me. But if you're interested in hearing this one specifically, then stay tuned for that. Now Brian did mention that he did once put this Studio Classic, this 20 watter, up against a full-blown 100 watt JCM, and yeah, the 100 water blew this one out of, out of the water. It was just too loud. I mean, you can't put up 100 watts, against 20 and expect it to survive. No kidding. But that's part of the reason why I was interested in this amplifier, because I had a JCM800 back in the day. It was glorious, but it just was too loud. So I can absolutely attest that those things are really loud monsters, and you have to dial them up to the sweet spot to really get that saturation to sound great. When you get there, it's fantastic, but by then you're probably dealing with tinnitus. So this is a more sane way of doing it, and you still get to enjoy that JCM800 sound. So the little Studio Classic is not too shabby at all, if you ask me. It really does deliver the goods. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening to this story. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more gear reviews, more amp reviews, especially on this one. And Brian, if you're watching this video, the viewers and I would love to invite you to the show, Addicted to Gear, live Sunday, for some Q&A about guitars and gear. If you're up to it, and if you feel like joining in, it's open. We can let it happen whenever you have time, man. Let's talk. That's it for now, guys. Thank you once again. Stay tuned. More to come right here on Addicted to Gear.